Welcome to Global Government News. Today is Tuesday, October 19th, 2010. I'm Darko. Thank you everyone for joining me in this War on Terror, which is really a war on liberty and sovereignty news segment here. And I don't have a lot of articles. Well, I guess it's still a lot of articles. It's like 14, but it's less than what I've had recently. I mean, some of these articles I've had like almost 20, 25 articles because there's just so much. I guess I was thinking about this, like, what would you call it? Negative news? And the way I look at the word negative, I kind of interpret it as darkness and not really lightness. I don't know. It's kind of getting metaphysical here, but negative is it's hiding the truth, right? Or it's a disinfo piece. And what I'm doing here, and what my goal here is at Global Government News, is to kind of read the news and see the thing that I learned in college here, as far as news writing and that goes, is that there's a lot that is told. You know, there's a lot that is said by not being said. In other words, you'll read these what I call propaganda pieces here, and then whatever's not included helps create the point of the story that they're trying to make, that the writers are trying to make. And it's really not the writers. The writers write it, and then their editors shape it. You know, they shape it a certain way so that it you know, satisfies the powers that be. And so basically you're going to get the same news all the time, ramming home the same agendas, which is usually, it's always about crises. There's always a crisis that exists. There always has to be some kind of water shortage crisis, or the war on terrorism and terrorist crisis, a financial crisis, and a food crisis. And so there's always these crises that are always going to be present. And they're only really crises because we're told that they are. But without going off too much on here, basically I hope what I'm doing here is it's not negative, and I hope it is positive. And I am optimistic long term in the future. Presently, I'm not too optimistic about our situation, but I hope that what I'm doing here overall is a positive thing, and that it helps you make some better decisions about your daily life. And so, yeah, there you go. And so this first story up here is Pentagon launches investigation after mystery gunman opens fire at building. And it says entrances to the Pentagon were locked down today after shots were fired at the building. Major Chris Perrine, a Pentagon spokesman, said a civilian reported hearing shots around 5 a.m. on the south side of the massive Defense Department headquarters. It says here 2 bullets hit an unoccupied part of the building, one striking a window and the other hitting the fabric of the building itself. The part of the Pentagon is being renovated, and you know, this is usually a telltale sign of a false flag terrorist attack. And it's not really a terrorist attack at all. I guess it is a terrorist attack, but to even infer that the government would allow terrorist attacks to occur, or directly or indirectly causing terrorist attacks, to most people would just seem like a farce. But if you do your research and you know your history, you'll realize really quick that isn't a farce, and it is a reality. So if you're a new listener and you don't know about any of this stuff, then I recommend you. There's a lot of information out there. Just try not to get overwhelmed by it, and you can pretty much connect dots. And you know, I've reported on a story about a shooter down in Texas at one of the Capitol buildings. I'm not sure. I think it was at Austin, and the individual, you know, looked like a military person, like ex-military or policeman. You can tell. White T-shirt, jeans, white guy, military haircut, and he basically went in there with a pistol and started shooting, not at anyone specifically. They were saying that he was going after some office or some person, but really he was just shooting pot shots into the air, not really intending on causing any damage or harm to anybody or property. Just basically they want to increase security, so they want to have the biometric body scanners there at the courthouse, and they'll get them. And so this is the little games that they play, in order to get things passed, because it's kind of well known that most people want privacy and don't want to be treated like slaves. But unfortunately, we've hit that point to where people have just accepted it. So yes, this has happened before. This happened earlier this year. The Pentagon shooter, 2 people I believe were killed, the 2 guards, and the individual was pretty much called a conspiracy theorist, and he had a blank stare on his face, and he made it past security somehow, in one of the most secured places in the world. And then, of course, his weapon was traced back to the Tennessee Police Department. So a lot of inconsistencies there. And like I said, you connect the dots, you'll see the bigger picture. Anyways, militants stage a deadly raid on Chechen parliament. Militants Tuesday stormed parliament in Russia's conflict-torn region of Chechnya and holding deputies and gunning down 3 people before killing in a bloody standoff with security forces, says the group of up to 4 militants broke into the parliament building in the Chechen capital Grozny early in the morning, sparking fears of a major hostage crisis before security forces moved in. And so it says here the dramatic raid was a major blow to the Kremlin, claims that stability has returned to Chechnya after 2 wars since the collapse of the Soviet Union and years of Islamist and separatist-inspired unrest. So here we go. General Hugh Shelton, Clinton official, suggested letting U.S. plane be shot down to provoke war with Iraq. So if you don't want to do your research and you don't want to learn more about the history, you can just check out stuff like this. It says in the publicity sheet that St. Martin's Press has been sending out to spur interest in General Hugh Shelton's new memoir, Without Hesitation, The Odyssey of an American Warrior. It says the last highlight is a doozy. Quote, a high-ranking cabinet member suggests intentionally flying an American airplane on a low pass over Baghdad so as to guarantee it will be shot down, thus creating a natural excuse to retaliate and go to war. And like I said, if you know your history, you know that this is straight out of like what happened with the Gulf of Tonkin. So you just allow yourself to be attacked. And it says here, Pakistan intelligence services aided Mumbai terror attacks. Oh, no. Militant arrested last year described dozens of meetings between ISI officers and senior Lashkar-e-Taiba operatives. And man, I wish I could remember the general, the ex-general or ex-military officer, head officer of ISI, but he basically has called him out and he's spilled the beans. So, and he's well documented on YouTube. You can find interviews of him. I wish I could remember his name right now. It says Pakistan's powerful intelligence services were heavily involved in preparations for the Mumbai terrorist attacks of November 2008, according to classified Indian government documents obtained by The Guardian. It says in a 109-page report, says into a report into the interrogation of key suspect David Headley, a Pakistani-American militant arrested last year and detained in the U.S., makes detailed claims of ISI support for the bombings. So you move here. Says newly disclosed documents shed more light on early Taliban offers Pakistan role. U.S. government documents obtained through the Freedom of Information Act and recently posted on the website of the George Washington University National Security Archive shed some additional light on talks with the Taliban prior to the terrorist attacks. Let me repeat this again. Shed some additional light on talks with the Taliban prior to the terror attacks on September 11, 2001, including with regard to the repeated Taliban offers to hand over Osama bin Laden and the role of Pakistan before and after the attacks. So there you go, folks. And again, well, I'm just going to keep repeating this for this video, so I'm sorry, but it's well documented that the U.S. created the Taliban to bring down communism in the former Soviet Union and what we now call Russia. So, says this one's from the AP being carried on MSNBC. .msn.com says U.S. terror war in Yemen frustrated by politics. Militants in this poor Arab nation appear unfazed by the American efforts. For nearly a year, the United States has waged a war against Al-Qaeda. Some people call them Al-Qaeda because it was basically a computer software used for tracking individuals that were basically on the government's payroll to carry out attacks and that. But it says, in Yemen, largely a deep secrecy, but the militants appear unfazed, and the fragile government of this poor Arab nation is pushing back against American pressure to escalate the fight. In America, just recently, the U.S. government funded Yemen's government to take on al-Qaeda. The regime of Yemen's longtime leader, President Ali Saleh, is weak, dependent for its survival on the loyalty of unruly tribes and alliance with Muslim extremists. Yemeni authorities also fear, too, that a harsh fight against al-Qaeda will alienate a deeply conservative Muslim population where anti-American sentiment is widespread. And, we're talking about people that don't want foreign occupiers in their country. So nothing is black and white when it comes to this issue. It is gray. And so there's people that don't want the U.S. in there. And you can say, well, don't you want our help? Don't you want our help? Well, if you can accept the fact that al-Qaeda is not a grassroots organization of terrorists, and that it's actually infiltrated with intelligence agencies and government funding, that it is basically used. If you can accept that, well, then you can realize that there's a lot of people over there that don't want us over there, and we're not helping the situation. In fact, we're perpetuating it. But you have to go back and realize. You have to go back and see. Well, how did we get there? How did this all come about? But I don't have time to explain that in this video. Moving on here, it says Russia to build nuclear power plant in Venezuela. Russia agreed on Friday to help build Venezuela's first nuclear power plant, sell its tanks, and buy $1.6 billion of oil assets, reinforcing ties with President Hugo Chavez, who shares Russian opposition to U.S. global dominance. Next one up, U.S. military. Ask America voters see green future. Says improving energy efficiency has become a top priority for the Pentagon brass as insurgents increase attacks on oil convoys in Iraq. And it basically goes on there and says, oh, bad oil, and and how they want to go green, which is interesting because it is my theory. Of course, this is just my theory. Maybe somebody else's, but I haven't heard them talk about it. But so I'll just assume it's my theory that the U.S. that the governments, obviously they have all kinds of surveillance and Big Brother type technology and defense technology that you think is 50 years down the road, but it actually exists now. And as they cut funding and stuff for the military, trust me, they're still going to have all their gadgets and their tools to enforce their policies and to keep the slaves in line. And so part of that is they're going to have green technology. And I actually believe that they're going to have Tesla technology where they can pull energy out of the air using these little not mobile towers, but using these little towers. And now, they're going in here talking about solar panels and all that. And what I see, or what I foresee for the future is that kind of like if it goes down this road, because there's all kinds of things that could happen, situations that could play out. But one of them is a doomsday apocalyptic type thing where basically you have the government, there's no electricity, all the grids go out, and this is done as a false flag terrorist attack in order to scare people, in order to cramp down, increase security and that, and put up the checkpoints and whatnot. And people will be depending on the government for food or water or whatever, ration cards, but the government will have like all this green technology and all that. And that's how I see it. While Americans don't have any, while the citizens don't have anything, and and you'll see things like lasers and all the other things that you saw in the movies actually being used by the government to oppress you. So Israeli forces, tanks invade Gaza. The next one up is 12 Israeli jets violate Lebanon airspace. The Lebanese army says 12 Israeli fighter jets have entered the country's airspace in violation of international law. The unauthorized U.S. strike kills 6 in Pakistan. Next one up, militants torch NATO trucks in Pakistan. Oh, they must not have made their payments, like the U.S., who makes payments so that they don't get attacked. Yes, they pay the Taliban not to attack them. The NATO doesn't. Military recruiters told to accept gay applications, and the only reason for this, folks, is because they need people. G20 leaders weigh new generation of challenges to global government. So thank you everyone for joining me. Please check out my website, ggnonline.com, and hope you have an excellent day.